Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Running Wild Podcast. I'm your co-host, Rich. Alongside me, as always, my co-host, Runz.
Yes, sir.
And just before we get started, I want to remind you guys that we're brought to you in partnership with pwponderings.com, Last Word on ProWrestling.com, and the Wrestling to the Max Network. All right, so with all that out of the way, we've reached the end of the line almost. Not for the episode, but for WWE pay-per-views for this year, as we had WWE Roadblock on Sunday. So, overall, how did you feel about Roadblock?
I mean, did you not do that on purpose, the end of the line?
Oh, no, I did that on purpose.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
No, I enjoyed Roadblock. I thought it was a good pay-per-view. You know, the matches were solid. There wasn't anything that I disliked. You know, I liked New Day losing the belts, and you know how they handled that. I thought that was good. And, you know, the rest of the show kind of just followed after it.
So, you know, we'll talk a little bit about the matches as we go through. I didn't like them losing the belts, so that kind of bothered me about the show, and I didn't love the ending. I just felt like it wasn't very... I thought it was very heel. And I didn't like the way the Iron Man match went. It just felt a little odd with the ending for me.
How so?
All right, so I think that like having Sasha tap right before the end was a little odd. I felt like it should have been the other way. I feel like it should have been the other way around, maybe. Like Sasha tied like Charlotte before the end.
Well, it was the babyface trying to hold on, and you know she just couldn't anymore, and she had to tap.
Well, the other thing that bothered me is, did you notice okay, so with 6 minutes left or 5 minutes left, Charlotte's clearly down, right? And she's taking her time, and she keeps looking at the screen, you know, and just it didn't make sense to me. Like, there's no way she would have known then that they if they tie, they go to overtime, right? So why not try to get the tie and then the win before the end?
Why do you think she wasn't?
Like, if you look at it, she didn't go for the figure four in the last... she didn't try to lock it on until the very last minute. I don't know.
That was her first opportunity.
All right. I mean, I tried to watch it back, and I just felt like that last 5 minutes was a little weird. I thought that she should be going for more pin... I don't know. It wasn't... It felt like she was going for a tie. And since she wasn't the champion, that didn't make sense. If she was the champion at that time, and she's just trying to tie Sasha, you know, because she doesn't need to have the extra win to keep the title, then it makes sense. I thought the way
I don't think she
was
weird. Yeah, I don't think she was just going for the tie. I think she was checking the clock to see, you know, what pins she could get in and how much time she had left to tie it or to, you know, take the lead eventually.
Was this out of all their special stipulation matches, was this your favorite one?
No, I mean, I like the Falls Count Anywhere because it was different. You know, we don't see the women, you know, use weapons all that often. So I really enjoyed that one more than anything. But I think this was a good, fitting way to end this rivalry. You know, I thought Sasha was going to win, but I don't mind Charlotte getting the belt back. And now it's her and Bayley and Sasha and Nia, and I like both of those programs going into Mania, and I think they'll both be good.
Do you have any issue with it being a 30-minute Iron Man match? I think we talked about this before the show.
No, because you're not going to do the full 60 on Roadblock. That's not how that goes.
The way you just said it, you're on Roadblock. It's Roadblock. Why not do it on that one?
Because it's Roadblock, and it's not WrestleMania or SummerSlam or Survivor Series or one of those
I thought you were saying
bigger pay-per-views.
I thought you were implying that Roadblock is so important that you wouldn't be able to take up 60 minutes of Roadblock.
No, you could clearly take up 60 minutes of Roadblock, but just, you know, you don't give that away there. Right? But, you know, 30 minutes is good for people's attention span nowadays, and 60 could be very long depending on who's in the ring, you know?
Good. They should have done a 60-minute tie and then no overtime. It would have been great.
Well, and now you have, you know, Charlotte won a 30-minute versus Sasha. Bayley won a 30-minute versus Sasha. and so now they're facing each other for the title. You know, like that's a cool little story.
Oh, that's right. So then, let's see, just going over the card. Rusev won by count out. I think that's close to what we had been talking about, basically. Like, it wasn't going to be...
Clean finish.
Yeah, it wasn't going to be decisive or clean. Then
Yeah, I like the count out because, you know, it made sense and it continues this little feud for another week or two.
I just keep... This is... You know, I just think it's a little weird with Rusev. And it's just... It seems like very, like, early 80s, like, Sherry. You know, like, Sherry was a lady... Or she, you know, she's a woman, but she was treated like very poorly by everybody. But she did like terrible stuff, and I feel like Lana is treated, you know, generally terribly by the faces. But she hasn't done anything bad. Like she doesn't even interfere in the matches. She's not as bad as Maurice.
It's just her smugness and the fact that she's the heel with Rusev. So, you know, you just automatically target that.
All right. So anyway, I mean, I hope the story doesn't go too much longer. To be honest, I feel like they need to do something else with Rusev, not focus on this him defending Lana, and then for some strange reason he's always the bad guy.
Oh well, I mean, you know, I think this was a good holdover, and you know, it'll get them wherever they need to go. But I've enjoyed the storyline. I've really enjoyed, you know, all the turns that it's taken, and you know, the hotel, and then him beating up Enzo in the sensitivity training and all that stuff. So I've really liked it.
All right. Then we had the tag team match. And, you know, my problem with the match was basically like, if you had them hold it this long, why not just go a little bit longer instead of losing the first opportunity they had to lose?
Right. I mean, you know, I mentioned that last week that was one of the reasons why I didn't want to see them lose, because it's clear that they were just breaking the record and then going to lose. But I think that's the answer to your question. They were just holding them to break the record, and now, you know, like they should have lost those belts half a year, maybe a year ago.
Well, yeah.
So, you know, I think it's been long overdue, and now that they broke the record, they have nothing to fight for, whatever. And they did a good job, you know, leading up to this match of teasing them losing and them coming close, and all these teams, you know, coming closer and closer, and then finally after the record, they got it.
Yeah, so, and then, you know, Cesaro and Sheamus, they're still kind of working that, you know, the fans like me, the fans don't like you thing. I thought they'd be a little bit more cohesive. I mean, they look good in the ring together, but it'll be interesting to watch how long they actually hold on to the titles for, because they're already starting the issues between them, where, you know, they're not going to be they're like a team that's hanging by a thread because they don't really like each other.
Right, but I don't think that's anything new. That's been the story of the team from day one. And then, you know, like they have the moments where they're on the same page, and I thought they did a fine job of, you know, just on Monday, just explaining like, well, you wanted to celebrate with your friends, but I wanted to celebrate winning the titles. Like, you know, so I think that was fine. And then they continue to do the, you know, just kind of stepping in front of each other on the way out and that sort of thing. But when it comes to the ring, for the most part, they're, you know, like you said, a cohesive unit, and they work well. You know, I get what you're saying with the heel-ish tactics of how they beat New Day, but I thought it was brilliant. You know, like I've never really seen someone pull their hand away from the tag and use that in that way. So I thought that was smart and a good way to, you know, kind of trick New Day into losing the belts, whatever.
You know, that was, I think, the ending was really well done. So I can't take that away from the match. Then my boy Sami Zayn, I mean, you know, if Mick Foley had just trusted him a little bit more, I think he would have had a victory over Strowman. He was setting up for that second hell of a kick as the, you know, time ran out there. So, what did you think about the match?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was fine. I thought it was exactly what we expected. I'm fine with that. And then it led to Braun Strowman just going crazy and decimating everyone on Monday, which I also really enjoyed and thought was well done, and it just continues to make sense, and they're doing a good job building this guy up to be a real monster.
Is he now going to be facing off against Reigns or Rollins, or is he still going to stay in this program with Zayn?
Well, is it at the Rumble we have Owens and Reigns? Is that when it is?
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, at least until January, whatever, he's not going to be facing Reigns. Rollins is headed for Triple H. I don't know. Maybe he faces Rollins for the time being, but that would be a little strange because they would both need a win. But I don't know. I don't know what they do. Maybe they give him Sami Zayn again at the Rumble and we get something else for Mania.
Does Zayn ever get the win, or was this his win?
No, that was the win. It launched Strowman into being a maniac. It showed Zayn has some heart, but now I think the next time Braun is taking him serious and he knows what he's got, and he'll just beat him towards the end.
I hope to see Sami Zayn actually get the victory over him. I feel like this was building towards it, but we'll see what happens going forward. I don't want him to be hotshot against.
Sami Zayn is not gonna beat Braun Strowman. Like he's not gonna pin the monster. Like nobody's pinned him yet. It's not gonna be Sami Zayn as the first person.
All right, agree to disagree. I'd like to see. I think part of the feel good aspect of the story would be if Zayn finally does get the victory over him. But I don't.
Well, he did this way.
But the thing is,
he's not gonna pin him.
Okay, so. Is he gonna be? Is Strowman gonna be one of those guys that once he gets pinned, it's over?
No, I don't necessarily think so, but it has to be a bigger deal than Sami Zayn beating him. If Sami Zayn beats him, then if Sami Zayn pins Braun Strowman, then everyone on the roster should be able to pin Braun Strowman by their booking and layout of the roster. There are a lot of guys ahead of Sami Zayn on their pecking order. So if he wins, then, everyone above him is capable of beating this 6'7" monster that you've been building up for almost a year now.
All right. I guess it's hard for me to separate here just because I might be a Sami Zayn fan.
You refuse to accept that Sami Zayn is just that perfect underdog selling, kind of a guy. And that's his role right now.
But he proved that he's not an underdog because he was seconds away from victory.
But that doesn't prove he's not an underdog. It just proves the underdog story true.
Damn it. Right. I can't really remember Rollins versus Jericho. Like, it didn't stand out to me.
No, yeah, it was just a solid, match, and we knew Rollins was going to win. You knew Owens was going to get involved, and, we got all of that.
Well said. Then you had I actually liked the Cruiserweight match, Swan, Kendrick, and Perkins. Swan walked away with the championship, which I think should have happened. He took advantage kind of Perkins, I believe, at the end, and kicked him off so that he just hit him with he pinned Kendrick, right, after a kick to the head?
Now, I'm not sure who he pinned, but the important thing was that Neville came back and is a heel, which is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, he was really... I thought that he was really convincing. Is he 205?
Probably not, but I just think they'll somewhat ignore that. He might be. I really don't know.
No, I thought that was really effective, though. And, I've never liked Neville's face, so I was really into him being the heel.
Yeah, I like his, angry British guy better than just like the happy-go-lucky, high flyer. His Red Arrow looks vicious, and it always has. So now being a heel, like the announcers sell it like, oh, there's a little more torque behind it, and it's a little more impactful, and so that's good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it on Sunday, and I enjoyed it again on Monday when he actually had a match, and like you said, I thought it was really effective.
So we talked about the Iron Man match. So the only match we have left is the Universal Championship match between Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns. And Owens won by disqualification when Jericho came in and interfered and helped his buddy out. Then I guess the big,
Well, Jericho code breaker Owens, not necessarily helping him out, but yes.
Well, I mean, I would do that for you. If you were wrestling in a championship match, and I knew that by hitting you, and it wasn't like just a love tap, you'd get disqualified and keep your title, I would help you.
Yeah, I mean, I think a punch would have done the trick, but that's okay.
That way we could stay.
Jericho needed to get some things out of the system, clearly.
That way we could stay Universal Champions.
Right.
And then after,
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the follow up on Monday with, them being best friends again and somewhat, still having that little tension and all that. But I think it's just a matter of, okay, we don't have time to do this storyline now, and the more we build it or the more we build them, it's going to be better when they do explode and when it happens. So, I'm fine with that for now. Stay together, let them be as awesome as they have been, and we'll get to that feud when the time comes.
Yeah, no, I'm totally happy that they're back together or they're staying together. I don't want them to split up. So we covered a lot of Raw.
Mm-hmm.
There was that
new tag belts.
Oh yeah, they're so much nicer looking. It's so weird how just by going, because it's the same design but just with silver, how much better it looks.
Right. I mean, it's the same as the SmackDown ones with the blue. It's just red, and that's fine. I get what they're going for with the uniformity. I like the red and the blue, and that's fine. I like the belts. I like how they look. I wish they would have been gold, just so that it wouldn't have been the same as SmackDown. But that's okay. I get it.
So Raw, you had Rusev defeated Cass by disqualification. Nia Jax and Sasha, as we talked about before. Then you had Noam Dar is just kind of creepy. I think he's really good at being like a creepy, sleazy guy. And Cedric with Foxy. So I like that they're investing time in it being something, something of value or having some backstory and not just we're in the division and we're fighting each other and I'm a good guy and you're a bad guy. So
right, and that's the beauty of the separate rosters and now even 205 Live where there are more than one storyline going on, and it's not just the main event or it's not just for the IC title. It's just other random regular feuds. Someone disrespected your wife. These people are dating and someone else wants those things happen in real life. They certainly happen backstage. So it just makes sense, and it gives you a reason to care about these people rather than just Cedric Alexander versus Noam Dar. Oh, that's a great match, but why are they fighting? What's the point? Just insert Alicia Fox, and that's all right, perfect. Now I understand. Now I can sympathize with one or both of these guys, and we go from there.
We had a gigantic tag match. I wasn't really wasn't that into this. How did you feel about it?
I don't even remember it, so we could just move on from that one.
All right, and then of course the most important match of the night: Sin Cara versus Titus.
You could have bet me $1 million like today that match was on Raw, and I would have said no.
Then you kind of had the fallout from Neville the next night, coming out and confronting Swan kind of called him out, and then you had Kendrick. It seems like him and Neville are slightly together, or at least for this situation, because I don't trust Neville. Oh well, I don't trust Kendrick either. So I think it'll be.
Well, I mean, they teased that both nights with Neville kind of just walking out on him, not leaving him hanging or whatever the case. So Neville seems like he's on his own now, and I like Corey Graves. It just adds so much to commentary already. But the fact that he's wrestled some of these guys, or that he teamed with Neville, and he's there saying I teamed with this guy. I never even knew he had it in him. I like this side. I thought that was great, and I really loved them having Aries. I think at the pay-per-view or Raw, whichever one or both, and him on commentary. I really like that stuff because like we were just talking about. It's Austin Aries, this guy's important clearly because they're bringing him to pay-per-views and Raw to commentate. He's going to be something sooner than later in that cruiserweight division whenever he's ready to go.
No, yeah, I don't know. I think that's been done effectively, and I'm interested to keep watching it. Actually, like this,
Yeah.
that added to me kind of really enjoying most of Raw. We talked about Bailey.
Completely agreed.
We talked about Bailey and Charlotte. Bailey ends up getting the win, so it seems like they're setting up for her to have at least a run at the title, or as a challenger. I'm not sure if we'll see any change. I don't want to see a change for a little bit, so we'll see how that works out. And then the ending you talked about earlier, where Rollins and Reigns defeated Jericho, and then you had Strowman just come out, and he had already destroyed Sin Cara and threw him through like a Christmas tree, and on top of some presents that were right around the tree. So then later on he comes out and he just demolishes Reigns and Rollins. I was shocked. I couldn't believe that happened.
Yeah, it was shocking. It was cool. I enjoyed seeing it. It's how a monster should be booked. And, I'm interested to see where it goes this week and just in the near future following. One thing we didn't just quickly talk about was the opening segment.
Oh, yeah, my favorite part.
Jericho and Owens was hilarious. And when Foley came out with the cage and all of that stuff, it was fantastic. I like that idea. It makes perfect sense. I'm looking forward to that match and seeing what happens and how they get out of it. So, good stuff.
Jericho saying that he would not get in that cage, and then getting in the cage to show that he wouldn't get in the cage.
Yeah, exactly.
Was
was
probably I think it was my favorite thing in wrestling all week, to be honest, except the first thing that started SmackDown off, because this is a close tie. AJ Styles just destroys James Ellsworth, and hopefully he's injured for a couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, I hope he goes away a little bit. I don't like Carmella coming to his aid, because that's just bullshit. I'm kind of upset about that, but I guess we'll see where it goes.
She's from Staten Island, It's weird. I don't know. It's really odd. It's so weird. She's not a face. She's never shown any nice part of her or side to her persona. So now suddenly this happens. It's so weird. I don't know where they're going with this.
I don't think it has anything to do with being the face. More as I don't know. I don't know what the point was. Why would you have an attractive female feel bad for this guy? I don't know. But he's been a little heelish, the past couple of weeks. So I don't know.
But usually when you have a heel guy with a girl, right? If they're not married, there's always, it's he's big and strong, or he's good looking, right? Then you have no chin music. It's just, I don't know. Well, then we had Gabriel Iglesias. He had embarrassed The Miz last week and caused him to lose to Apollo Crews. So now, basically, Miz gets his, he kind of gets a chance to get a measure of revenge against Apollo Crews, and he wins this match. Apollo, I hope they do something with him, because it's just, he's good. This match showed me again how good he is. I kind of forget sometimes. But then the really kind of Total Divas moment, right, is Renee Young comes out to do an interview with Miz right after about the issues he has with Dean Ambrose, and then Miz starts kind of going off on her about how she dates him or dates Ambrose, and then she ends up slapping him and leaving the ring. So I thought it was good, but at the same time, I don't like when Total Divas becomes part of the show.
I just think that they point things out because they're being pointed out, in their universe now. And so, like, okay, well, now Renee Young and Dean Ambrose are known as a thing, so whatever. And I think it worked. I liked the Miz, taking the mic and just being a dick, and her like, really? This is not, and just slapping and walking away. I thought that was well done. And now you can have, that adds to the beef between him and Ambrose, and it creates a beef between Maurice and Renee Young, where we can explore that in some areas. So I think it makes sense for now, and I actually enjoy it. I really like Renee Young, so I think that helps too. That I think she's really good in her role, and she knows her shit. So I wouldn't mind seeing her with some mic time on Raw, interacting with Maurice and the Miz or whatever on SmackDown.
The only thing I see what you're saying about it's part of the universe because they have it on Total Divas, but then why does Lana still have an accent on WWE TV? Like if you're gonna say, hey, because we know you're watching this show and they're together, we're gonna take advantage of that. So we're showing you that we know.
But it's still a show. Like, you're not gonna come out and what they did with Kofi, you can't do with Lana. Like,
then
you
make
can't
her.
just...
Then you know what? Then you should have told her that she had to be accent the whole time.
If you don't know that wrestling is a show, then at this point you're an idiot. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so if you're not accepting of like, oh, hey, she doesn't have an accent in real life, this is bullshit, then find something else to watch. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, Rusev has an accent. Like, I'm okay with some of it. It's just
right. And he actually has an accent.
Well, I guess that's what it is. Yes.
Right.
Okay.
And
when
Lana, on Total Divas, Lana was saying like that she was born in Russia or whatever. So once she said that, I was like, oh, hey, that's okay. She lived there till like 6 years old. That's cool. And sometimes she does have an accent when she speaks, but it's not always there.
All right. I guess just the one thing in wrestling that I like to believe the accents are real. I knew there was a part of me that knew always that Santino's was fake, but I didn't want to believe it until I heard him on Cole Cabana's podcast, and then I was pretty upset. So anyway, moving on. Then we had Natalya ends up admitting that she actually did attack Nikki Bella.
Speaking of like not making sense, so Carmella, calls her out of, saying that she did it and blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, you caused all of this, and chases Carmella, and then just comes out 2 seconds later and is like, oh, you know what? I did it. Why didn't you just say you did it 4 minutes ago when you were all in the ring? Like, it just...
It's more Total Divas, man. More Total Divas
no,
than
no,
SmackDown.
No. That has nothing to do with Total Divas. It's just why chase Carmella out of the ring to then come back and say you did it? Why not just be like, oh, you know what, Carmella? Yeah, I did it. And, like,
Well, because, like, she's a heel. So, like, F you for being a snitch. And then, okay, fine. Now I'm just going to address it. I kind of get that.
But the heel on heel beef doesn't, I don't know.
It's weird. I like heel on heel beef. Not super crazy, but I don't like you, you don't like me, and because you're both shitty people. Like when you have two heels,
right. Like the heels always get along, and that shouldn't be real because when you're an asshole, you should be an asshole to the assholes anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
I get what you're saying with that, but I don't know. It was just like I don't know. It didn't feel right to me, and I don't know. I didn't like it.
All right, then you had, we'll just keep going. We had La Luchadora make her debut on SmackDown. She defeated Alexa Bliss. Okay, so at first I thought it probably was Becky Lynch. And then I actually found that like the moveset was slightly different. And some of the mannerisms, so I was like, oh, you know what? This is pretty good. And for half a second, I believed maybe it wasn't her. And then, of course, when she lost her disarm her.
They were talking about like, look at her misshapen head. Like, what the hell? Yeah. Like, it was just like, well, clearly because she has fucking her hair under there. But I commented to you how like this thing is so awesome. Like I love this throwback, dressing up under the mask and that sort of thing. And the only reason why it worked is because they've consistently had jobbers on TV for the past 2 or 3 months. So you're not like, who the hell? What the hell is this? Why is there just some random person? You're just kind of accustomed to somebody having a rollover job match and that being it. So it was really well done. I'm sure there were people who were like, what the hell? Who is this? And didn't really pay attention until, she put on the disarmer. And I thought it was well done.
Yeah. I enjoyed like the Mr. America storyline where everybody knew who it was, but that kind of thing. So if it would have been one more week, just the end of the night, I don't know. I guess I like that storyline or that angle, and I wanted to see it played out a little bit more.
Yeah, but I don't know. It was fun.
Then you had actually we skipped. Dean Ambrose ended up defeating Luke Harper. I thought it was a really good match.
Yeah, it's two guys who have wrestled before and are both good in the ring. So anything, it couldn't be anything less.
Yeah, and then the Wyatts ended up beating down Ambrose, and then Miz comes out and attacks Ambrose. So they're gonna keep going with something. So I'm happy with it. I don't want to see I don't think Ambrose can win the IC title again. But if this is just a program to get them to Royal Rumble, I guess that's fine.
Yeah, I like the Miz as the IC champion, so I don't think it's time for him to lose yet. But it could go either way.
And then you had Mojo Rawley had an issue with Kurt Hawkins. I guess they're going to keep pushing him while Zach's hurt.
Yeah.
It would be interesting if Mojo, keeps fighting and they keep kind of slightly pushing him, and then or maybe he keeps having a program with Hawkins, or whenever Ryder comes back. If Ryder came back and like turned on Mojo, and ends up going back with Hawkins.
I think, I would have liked to see that play out, while Zach was healthy, and maybe we were going in that direction. I don't know, but unfortunately now we won't. But I think, like you said, I wouldn't mind seeing some type of like, Zack Ryder's tag team partner is on the line here, and Hawkins pulls out a win somehow, or something like that.
I'd like to see it where it's the type of thing where they're about. Was it Cody? Was it?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
It was Cody and Bob Holly versus DiBiase and his mystery partner.
See, I would like to see something like that.
Yeah, that's ideal.
And then
clearly, because that was awesome. Then
he grabs the mic and he says something like, "Maybe if you didn't stay hyped all the time, my knee wouldn't have gotten hurt."
Now you're stealing my moves. Yeah. What are you doing, bro?
Oh man, it would be so great. All right, and then then you had, which was really a curveball. Ziggler ended up taking on Baron Corbin, and they had a match to determine who should really have the title shot next week. And it's a double count out, which is fantastic. I love that. I love that as an ending. And now they're both in the match.
Yeah, the way they've been building Corbin, I legitimately thought Dolph was going to lose. And I like the double count out. I like Corbin being added to the match. He's being treated like a star, and he should be. And so I like him getting in this spotlight. And, it's always nice. This is Dolph's time. Royal Rumble time is when he shines. But this is, like heading into WrestleMania, and you have Strowman entering a big picture. You have Corbin entering the big picture. I think these are good things.
Yeah, no, I mean, the SmackDown, how do I say it? If Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn were on SmackDown, I don't think I'd need to watch Raw. Type of thing.
I disagree, but I get what you're saying.
It's just I think that they're just the way they're doing all the story. Everything just works for me a little bit better on SmackDown.
Well, because it's fresh. It's all the we've talked about it since the draft. It's all the guys who wouldn't have got a shot on Raw, and Raw is the same guys who always get the shot. So now that we've moved on from a little bit of that and we're getting some newer things going on Raw, it's been a lot better the past 2 or 3 weeks. I've enjoyed it more than SmackDown. But yeah, SmackDown has been hitting on all cylinders, and that's a credit to both shows.
And then NXT, basically, some of the big news out of there was that Bobby Roode won a four-way match, so now he's a number one contender for the title.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw I think it was Almas got eliminated first, then you had Strong go out next, then Dillinger, and then Roode. So it's weird because I like three of the four. I really like three of the four guys in that match. If Dillinger wins, I would have been happy, although it wouldn't have made a lot of sense against Nakamura. But then also, I would have loved to see Strong win. So I wonder if they'll do something with Strong and Almas or Dillinger. I don't know where they're going to go from here with those three guys.
I could see Strong going into something with Joe to earn his spot, but yeah, Bobby Roode is one of the most over guys on that roster, maybe with his theme song and all of that, and that guy is a professional. He's awesome, so I don't mind him getting that win. I think that's the correct person to choose for that spot, especially since he's the heel and Nakamura is the face. If Samoa Joe was still the champion, like I said, maybe Roddy gets that win, but I still think we can see them face off at the next takeover or something along those lines to cement Roddy and maybe say farewell to Joe.
It does seem like it might be time for him to go up. At the same time, I kind of want to see him stay on NXT a little bit, just selfishly.
Yeah, but what is he going to do?
Yeah, I guess you're right.
He can have those matches with guys like Roddy along the way out, and build some new guys, and that's, usually what they do on NXT.
And then I think there was the tag team title match where
I didn't see NXT.
DIY retained against the Revival. So now they're going to be set up to basically take on the Authors of Pain at the NXT TakeOver in San Antonio. Did you watch 205 Live?
No.
All right. I mean, you basically just had Neville and Kendrick.
Yeah, I did. I just didn't really pay attention.
You had Neville Kendrick defeated Swan and Perkins. That was kind of
the
big
thing.
Watched that. Cedric defeated Drew Gulak. I love watching Cedric, so I want to continue seeing more of him. I'm wondering why we haven't seen Tozawa though and Gran Metalik yet.
I think it's just like they said something about they had Tajiri and a couple other guys on 204 gets more name value or something like that. They said so.
Okay.
We'll be seeing more down the line. They're just you don't want to throw everyone in there at once.
That makes sense. Ring of Honor actually went back to a kind of current episode the week before they had a Women of Honor episode, which was okay. My review's up on PW Ponderings. I won't go into depth about it. And then, so this week you had it was weird. You had kind of like a Raw segment where O'Reilly comes out to talk about how he's the champion. And then Cole comes out and complains about it being a no DQ match, which I thought was just excellent heel stuff. It doesn't take away. It's so logical that it works.
Yeah.
Then Dalton Castle comes out and he's like, well, I pinned Cole before he lost to you, so I kind of am moving up in the ranks and I deserve one. And he says some ridiculous thing like, I'm not a math teacher, but I'm related to a math teacher, so that makes me half math teacher. And then Fish came out because Fish had won the Survival of the Fittest, so they were drawing at each other and making it known that they're all in line. So then they set up a match, Teddy Long style, for later in the night, where Red Dragon took on Cole and Red Dragon and Dalton Castle took on Cole and the Young Bucks. I was about to say Cole and Castle, and I was like, that would be weird. Yeah, so they made it a 6-man. They're starting a Decade of Excellence tournament where it's just guys who've been in the company for 10 years.
Yeah. So
Daniels won. He actually got a clean win against Mark Briscoe. So I'm happy Daniels won. And, he's been more kind of slightly face-ish since Ladder Wars. Not completely.
Hmm.
Like he won't adhere to the code of honor before the match, but after the match, he's like, "Oh, okay, you've earned it." So then he shakes hands. So I would, he's now 46. I think the Decade of Excellence tournament is going to end at the 14th year anniversary show.
Hmm.
So if that's the way they're going to do it, I'd like to see him get, like one last title shot. I think it would kind of, he might be on his way out soon. You never know.
Yeah, why not?
He's not Julio Franco. Then you had Caprice Coleman is just ridiculous, but basically they came out, they tried to get Leo Rush to join. He says no. And then Caprice Coleman cut a promo that was longer than the match. Once the match started, Leo Rush basically like leapfrogged him twice and rolled him up. So it's kind of weird because if you're trying to make the Rebellion look a little bit more serious, I don't know if that's the way to go. And then the main event was, it was a good six-man tag. I don't love six-man tags, but there was one spot where, I'm not sure if you've seen the GIF, Kyle O'Reilly gets super kicked off the apron, and then I think Nick Jackson and Cole, they catch him, put him back up, he gets super kicked again, they catch him, put him back up, he gets super kicked again, and then they hold him, and Jackson ends up, Nick ends up doing a swanton from the top to the outside.
Yeah.
I think Matt Jackson tweeted it like, I get knocked down, but I get up again. So I thought it was pretty good, and I'm just happy that the quicker turnaround, I guess, for the TV tapings to start. I'm not sure I think next week they're going to do a best of, which I'm completely fine with. It's the last week of the year. It's a weird week. You don't need to put anything new on, but I just think it's going to keep things going. And then you have at Wrestle Kingdom on January 11th, they announced that O'Reilly's defending against Cole there. So it's kind of short notice on that, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I definitely like that. That, getting added to the New Japan show, because that's, their biggest show of the year. So it'll be nice for those guys to have that spotlight on them.
And what's weird so far is it seems that maybe O'Reilly has not signed yet, but everything that they're announcing in terms of future matches from now, they've made a bunch of announcements about matches that are taking place in the first week of February. There's no word of O'Reilly being on any of those shows.
Okay.
So hopefully, I guess they haven't re-signed yet officially, so they can't say that he's going to be there, but you would hope that the world champion is going to be there at the events in February, and he going forward, it's kind of weird to hear that he's not going to be there.
Well, you haven't heard he's not going to be there. He's just not advertised yet.
Well, yeah, but it's kind of a weird guy not to advertise. Usually your world champion is kind of the lead guy.
Yeah, but like you said, they haven't come to terms yet, so they can't advertise him.
Yes, you are correct. All right, and also Bull James is going to be with the company again, so I'm not sure if they haven't announced that he's signed or anything like that, but he's going to be down in Atlanta taking on Silas Young. So
I thought they signed him a while ago. He just hasn't really been used yet.
Oh, just as also, well, I don't know if I didn't know if that's what it was. I didn't know if he was just appearing for them or if he was officially signed. Because he wrestled in House of Hardcore. I'm not sure if that would be limited if he were signed full time. And then the one thing is that O'Reilly will be teaming up with Lethal against Cody and Cole in Atlanta, but we don't know anything about O'Reilly afterwards. So I'm looking forward to that match too. Cody and Cole full Bullet Club stuff will be fun to watch, and it'll be interesting to see how they react. Well, everyone likes the Bullet Club, but people did, Hammerstein did not like what Cody did, so I wonder, he'll be in his hometown basically, if they'll kind of overlook it.
All
right, and that's you got anything else for this week?
No, that's pretty much it.
All right, so a couple of things before we head out of here. First, next week we're planning on doing a kind of year-end type episode. So if you guys have any topics, make sure you send them over to our Twitter. You can find us over at Running Wild LWOS, and you can also email us at runningwildpodcast@gmail.com. Also, don't forget that we're running a special contest for 2 tickets, second row tickets to a Glory Pro show on February 19th. All you have to do is at us at Big Mike 25 and also hashtag Big Mike Verse, and just pick somebody you'd like to see him wrestle in the future for the Glory Pro promotion that he's running over there in Illinois. All right. And then don't forget, you can go over, since you guys have time off for the holidays, a lot of you guys are probably teachers, things like that. You want to take a break from the family, you hear a great episode, you're like, I want to give these guys a Christmas present. You don't have to give us anything. All you need to do is go over to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe. That'll really help out. And you can make sure that you like and follow us on SoundCloud as well. All right, with all that out of the way, just a reminder, also check my Ring of Honor writing and Evolve stuff over at pwponderings.com and also on Last Word on ProWrestling.com. And with that out of the way, I think that Runz might kill me if I don't end the episode right now, so I'm just going to remind everyone listening out there to have a happy and safe holiday. We'll talk to you guys next week before the new year, and you've been listening to the podcast that is just too
sweet.